Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Kashif Boothe podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with a guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs, the lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is Eric Lockley. We met in 2019 at the Black Web Fest in New York, and these guys who are listening, they know it's a trend because I've literally interviewed everyone who I met there. So you're my eighth interview. So I've interviewed, I don't know if you remember Jason Pierre, like he had that film called The Essential Donut. It was like a talking donut. Do you remember that
Oh
one?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I did Stephen St. Pierre. He had the film about his wife being a drug addict. And so like running trend, but it's all good to like connect with you guys because like I said,
Absolutely.
it's easier to do you guys first because over Zoom and I don't need to do it in the studio. So it's cheap. Well, I thought let me reconnect with everyone out there. So how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm doing well, and we love an international connection. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can go out and visit you in London.
Yes, exactly. And I could come out there to LA. Well, now you are based in LA, well, New York and LA. So it's been hard
Yeah,
to like try to connect because time difference is crazy, but it's been good. So yeah, so I mean, for you guys to know about Eric, he's an actor, comedian, writer, and host of his own podcast called the 180 Podcast with Eric Lockley. So yeah, thanks for coming on. So like I met you obviously in 2019 and your web series Blacker, which I saw, which was
yeah.
brilliant, was screened. And what I loved about Blacker is what, he kind of, the main character in it, he's very rude to, I wouldn't say what, is she a voodoo queen, a witch? What would you kind of cover?
Well, so the character, he's a white guy that ends up um having a negative encounter where he bumps into this woman who's on the street selling goods,
Mhm.
and she's she is a black woman that is tapped into a spiritual something special. I don't know. I mean, some people say she's a witch, but she's there's something special about it, and she puts a curse on this white guy, and then the curse is such that strangers to him see him as a black person. And so I, Eric Lockley, that's who I am, in case people were confused. But I, who am a black man, I play the black version of Addison, who's the white guy who has this curse put on him.
I thought it was great. I mean, it's such a black comedy, it really shows the perspective of like, how black people are seen outside of non-black people. And so it was funny, it's relatable, but also it's educational at the same time. So what made you two, because I know your co-star, he also co-created it with you. So how
Yeah.
did you both come up with that concept?
So Rhett Owen, who we co-created it, he had this idea and about like body switch type of thing, Freaky Friday idea. And Harrison David Rivers, who's a mutual friend of ours, was like, "Oh, you should talk to Eric because he knows I do comedy and that I love out of the box ideas." So we discussed ideas and put it together, uh, and initially he had a very clear idea of what the pilot would be, what the first episode would be. And so since then we like worked to figure out what the series would look like, what the web series would look like. And and so we were like, all right, we got some ideas. Let's shoot this first episode. We made that happen. We shot the second episode, and we were in the process of kind of raising money to kind of just shoot the whole thing. And then the pandemic happened, and so stalled that, and we really started prioritizing taking care of ourselves in this wild time. So I'm hopeful that we will get back to Blacker, but there are already 2 episodes that folks can check out. You can go to blackertheseries.com. I hope I'm right. I'm typing it
You are
in
right.
to make sure that that's right. I haven't been there myself in a little bit. But yeah, blackertheseries.com to watch the 2 episodes that are available now.
Amazing. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan of it because it was funny, it was relatable, and it is a great, like you said, like a twist on Freaky Friday, which is if you don't know Freaky Friday, obviously the mom and the daughter swap lives for is I think it's a couple of days, and with Blacker, it's we don't actually know how long he's gonna be
Right.
seen as a black man to everybody other than his own girlfriend, because that was it really. It's just himself and his girlfriend who are the only ones who can see him as the white man that he is. So yeah.
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 And the journey of the series is like, initially, because in that first episode that we screened, he doesn't know what's going on. Like, he doesn't know what's going on. And then I think as we wrote it, the second episode, he's really like trying to figure out, he's like, what's going on? He goes to a job interview and has a very strange experience. And so we're excited to explore like the different places, the different environments, and how being seen as a Black person affects him and his ideas of privilege, his ideas of entitlement, and then simultaneously also explore him trying to figure out the mystery, like what happened, how can I fix it. So yeah, there's a lot of potential for it. So I'm really hopeful that we can complete it and share it with the world.
Well, I'm excited to see however it goes and how far it goes, because yeah, it's a really good concept, and like it has so much potential. And with that kind of show, you can really like do it over a 10 episode season, or it could even be a movie, for example. Like it literally could be like a feature film, and you've got those life lessons of understanding racial biases, microaggressions, and white privilege. And then so you can be able to educate the audience and then also the character within that kind of time space. So that's really cool. So yeah. So post Black Web Fest 2019, what have you been up to? Because I'm always seeing you on your Instagram, you're always busy, you're multifaceted, multi-talented. So like remember, you're an actor, comedian, writer, and podcaster. So what have you been up to and what's been going on?
A lot. Good things. I've been yeah, I'm like, "Oh, how many hats have I been wearing?" But that's been the case for many, many years at this point. One thing that's coming up is I have an Afrofuturist play that I wrote, that I've been developing with my theater company, the Movement Theater Company. And that play is called Sweet Chariot. And it takes place on Earth, then on a spaceship, and then on a new planet. And it really explores the question, what is liberation for Black people and what is liberation for Black individuals? And so that piece will premiere a work in progress showing will premiere in January at the Under the Radar Festival at the Public Theater in New York. So I've been writing that, did a few small workshops with actors to hear some of the text, and we'll continue developing that as it premieres in January. So I'm excited about that. That's one project. And then you mentioned my podcast, The 180 with Eric Lockley. That's something that I started when we were in the early portion of lockdown. I was like, I mean, many people, but I know I was in an apartment by myself, feeling very confused and low and frustrated. And I thought about, well, what do I need? What will help me right now? And I knew that stories of people overcoming adversity would be really helpful and healing for me. And I truly believe that when we share our stories, we heal ourselves and we heal others. So I wanted to create a platform for people that I knew, whether they were celebrities or not, to share some of their stories, to share a 180, a turning point in their life. So on the podcast, what we do is we like play a game, because I want to keep it fun and upbeat. We play a game and then have a discussion about a moment in the guest's life when things turned around for them, or when they decided to turn things around, and talk about how they learned and how they grew from that. Those are two major things I've been working on.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. That's really good to hear. I mean, it's always busy. It's always good to be busy anyway, especially during the pandemic. And I totally understand that, creativity to kind of reignite your creativity and keep active was very difficult. You know, like for
Yes.
me, I remember I was in the process of making a web series. We had just started casting, was doing callbacks, and literally everything just had to be pushed aside. And so it was just like, what do you do, you know, in this kind of environment? So it was really good to hear. And now you've got a podcast, so it continues your
Yeah.
creativity and yeah, keep it moving. So that's really cool. And with your play, so with your theatre company, have you funded it? Like, how are you funding, or how have you funded your projects, like leading up to now, anyway?
Yeah. It's been a range of things in terms of like, if you say, how have I funded my projects? Because there's everything from the short film to, then I do have a theater company and a Harlem-based theater company. So, you know, for the nonprofits that I'm a part of, the Movement Theater Company in Harlem 9, there are grants that we apply for, and then individual donors that help to support. And the movement has been around for about 14 years, and Harlem 9 has been around for, I think, 11 years. Wow. So anyway, so over time, most of that process of like writing grants and getting to know funders and the funding process gets easier. So that can help to have that initial experience was very difficult when we were early in our process. It was like learning to write a grant and how to, you know, what's the best language and creating language and be able to talk about ourselves. But now it's much, much easier. So that was some of the process. Then, like when I wrote and produced and starred in a short film back in 2016, and I definitely utilized crowdfunding to help support. So I had a GoFundMe campaign, and of course reached out personally to some people and was like, hey, you know, phone calls, hey, can you help me out? Can you support this project? This is how I see it happening in the world, and this is the gift that I want to give to people. So if you can offer a gift, I would be so grateful. So yeah, crowdfunding, fundraising, and grant writing is usually how I'm funding the projects right now.
No, it's really good to hear, because sometimes you hear a lot of people, like including myself, self-funding has been the way to go because it's just easier. And then
Yeah.
there is such a process with applying for grants and like with art council organizations and funding, and that is very difficult. I mean, I have a friend, he we have the arts council of here in the UK, and he gets funding like that, like because he knows the language. You can tell he's built
Yeah.
up a relationship with them, so anything he applies for, he just gets it. And I'm just like, I could choke you right now because I want that money. But it's like, but you know, but once you get used to it and really understand what they're looking for, and like you said, using the language, it's about the right language and what you're going to actually use the money for, because a lot of these institutions are all about giving back to somebody. So you've got to find a way as to how you're going to give back to the community and help somebody else through the door and stuff like that. You know, crowdfunding is cool, but it's very difficult. Yeah, I've done it twice. I don't think I'll do it again. Yeah, nah, I don't know. I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, let's try and get some investors, or I just want to pitch. Like, I'd rather just now, I feel like you get to a point where you've done enough small projects, and now you just kind of want to, let's just start pitching to some people who want to invest in me and my
Yeah.
future, and then go forward like that. So that's really cool. So I've noticed like there's like a theme with some of your work. It's really talking about just like the Blackness. Would you say that that's something you're really passionate about, is really showing or portraying like the representation of what it's like to be Black in America? Or what else? Like, what else would you say is your message when you're producing your content?
Yeah, I mean, identity, I think, is the most uh universal struggle that, you know, we have as a species. You know, it's like, who am I is constantly what we're asking ourselves, and day to day it may change. But you know, will your skin color change? Will your, you know, there's so many aspects of identity to explore. So certainly identity is really important to my work, and Black identity specifically is I am consistently astounded by the resilience of Black people, and the legacy that we continue to create on this planet as a people. I mean, it really is astounding. So I think that is most often why I feel moved to tell a story with a very present Black perspective, as opposed to, oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, to me, a Black story is a universal, is a universal story. So I don't think it needs to be categorized outside of Blackness or separate from Blackness. It's like we can celebrate that and know that it's also universal. So yeah, and I think another big theme in my work that I continue to discover, because the more you do your art, the more you discover what your voice is, what matters to you. So it's important to just do it, do it, do it. But another aspect is just performance. Like, how often are we performing in our lives? So even with Blacker, his performed entitlement is becomes hostility when he is Black. So when that white man is suddenly viewed as Black, it's like he went from being professional or assertive or bold or different thinker, all these they could be all these great ways of describing him, to he's hostile, he's a little arrogant, he's aggressive, he's edgy. And so I'm always interested in how we perform and how our performance of ourselves is perceived. I explored that. One of my first shows out of college, I wrote and performed in a one-man show called Last Laugh, and it explored two characters. One was inspired by Sammy Davis Jr., and one was inspired by Step and Fetch It. And it kind of explored the headspace of these two very different characters. One who really passionately felt he deserved to be in the same world as white folks, and strove for that and strived for that. And then Step and Fetch It, who was recognized that he was a stereotype, but felt like he was still creating opportunities for his community. And then when he became enemy number one within the Black community, it was like, wait, but I was doing this for y'all. So considering how they performed, whatever their ideas of performance were, and how it backfired on them, I'm always really interested in Blackness and performance as explorations of the pitfalls of society and the downfalls of our own psyches.
Really good points, really good points. Because I like the point what you made about how Black stories are universal, and it is. I feel like where it becomes categorized as Black stories or Black themes is because non-Black people can't see themselves in the work beyond the color of their skin, when every single thing we're saying is relatable on a global scale. So let's say you may not have understand racial biases, but you can understand biases within your own community in terms of gender and so many different layers you can go into. And so it's good to just hear that, because a lot of people don't understand that, and that's where you see everything put into boxes as, okay, those are Black stories, those are white stories, Latino, whatever. So for example, over here we had, you may have seen it, may have heard of it, we had a mini series called Small Acts, and it had like John Boyega in it, and it was talking about so over here, like when it was airing, only 1.2 million people were watching it. And so when you look at the demographic of how many Black people in the UK, you could see that was only Black people watching that every week. And that's like, we're only like 3% of the population over here. So that showed that, okay, non-Black audiences saw that show and were like, oh, that's not for us. But really, you could watch it because it's telling everyone's story about what happened in this country. But the UK has amnesia when it comes to racism and their history, and they're a part of like the history of racism, so it's no surprise. So so I get that. So you made a good point. But I mean, some people would say to me that, oh, my content is a lot of very Black focused and stuff, and really I'm just making characters who just happen to be Black. That's all it is. You know, I'm telling stories of my friends, my family, who I am, and that's the story we're telling through it. You know, just like when you see Friends, like, okay, Friends is about what, a group of six of white people, and they're just saying their friends, like their stories, their like their dating lives. I mean, they all ended up sleeping with each other anyway. That might be their friendship group, but not mine. But you know, so it's like you're just telling normal stories. Like that. So it's that's really cool. But like I said, I'm a big fan of your content. I've seen the stuff you've been putting out. So it's just good to hear, you know, your themes and what you like to do and what you're telling through your art. So that's always good to hear. So I've recently seen you've moved to LA. So what are you doing out in LA? You know, the dream was always LA. So you've gone from New York to LA. And I see you out with get me his name right. Let's say, because I know you're with the actor from Pose and I want to pronounce his name correctly. Yeah, because I make sure, because you told me Delon.
Yeah, and I put my earphones in because there was a helicopter, and I was like, all right, let me just.
Well, it's cool. Delon. Well, because I'm British, so it's going to sound different anyway. Delon. Was it Delon?
Yeah, Delon.
Delon. Okay.
Yeah, Delon.
That's probably
like the emphasis is on the ending syllable, Delon.
Okay, cool. And then I saw you out with the British R&B singer called Daly. So like, yeah, so you're out there, you know, living your best life. So like, what brought you to LA?
So I have been back and forth. I've had the opportunity to come to LA a few times in my life. That's an exaggeration, but yeah, a few times in my life. And more recently, given, you know, the pandemic of it all, I was like, all right, let me spend a little more time out here and be intentional. So I've lived in New York for a good amount of years, over a decade, and established and done some wonderful things there. But I think for many of us, the pandemic brought into focus, like, what are our larger goals and what are we waiting for to go after them? And so I started considering, like, what does expansion look like for me? And what am I waiting for to really embrace that expansion? And so I came out here to visit in June and spent like 2 weeks out here. And I was like, you know what? This feels like expansion, and this feels like as good a time as ever to really be intentional about, okay, I'm going to come out here, spend more time than I have, a larger chunk of time, and start planting seeds, start having some meetings, doing auditions out here, and establishing who an identity in LA so that people know me as a content creator, a comedian, a writer, an actor in LA, and not exclusively in New York, or not in New York and some other places. But it's like, okay, yes, I'm doing this also in LA. And to me, it's just expansion. And I think when we're blessed and fortunate to have a vision that includes expansion, it's like, well, I didn't want to be a person that was waiting for something to happen before I decided, well, yeah, I'm ready to expand, you know?
That's really good. I feel like a lot of people have been in that kind of phase with the pandemic as well. Like, I feel like, you know, people use lockdown as a time to like refine their skills, redefine it. I did a lot of that as well. I did a lot of studying, read a lot of screenwriting books and producing books, really just to like, you know, expand my knowledge, because I don't know everything. Nobody does. You're constantly learning and growing as an artist and creative. So, and then it's like, okay, once this was over, I don't think it's ever going to be over, but once we get to some, you know, some sort of normality where we can like go back out, I was like, okay, I want to be ready to be able to take my career to the next level. You don't want to get complacent, you know, and the pandemic already pushed back so many stuff. So it's like, okay, seeing what can we do now? Where can we go? How can we be progressive? Like, I felt like when I went out to America quite a lot in 2019, that was me trying to starting to expand my contacts internationally, because being black in the UK, there's like a ceiling we can reach to, and that's it. There's no point above that ceiling. Like,
Yeah.
forget the clouds are our limit. No, we have a ceiling in our house. Like, that's how far we go. So I was like, okay, I want to start, connecting with people across the pond, and let's see what we can do out here. And so my plan last year was like to be in and out of America all the time, hitting up people like you, like, hey, let's catch up, let's see what we can do. No, can't go. And then Biden still is blocking us from going there. So
yeah.
so I totally get it. Like, and now it's about stepping up and like, okay, you're established here, but where are our goals going to take us? And we know LA is the place, if you want to, because being a content creator, an actor, writer, I mean, being a creative in general, like, you have to wear multiple hats if you want to put food on the table, as the saying goes. So yeah, you can't sit around and just do one thing and think, yeah, this is what I'm going to work on. Like, if Issa Rae did that, for example, she would still maybe be struggling to like be an actress. Now she's established herself as a producer, screenwriter, and then she can also do her acting on the side where she's not wearing those hats. She can be an actress, so that's what it's all about. So that's really cool. But it's also, making your own content.
Yes, making your own content, and mostly because like you were very direct about like reading books and blah blah. And so I just want to also add, I've been reading books, but no, I've been reading and taking the time to do that, and also like being more intentional about my writing practice. And so I have now, I have the play that I'm working on, but I also have a pilot that I'm developing and feeling better about than I was before. And I'm able to sit and meet with people and talk with people. And I think it's important to, birds of a feather flock together, that type of thing. So it's like, where do you want to see yourself? If you are looking around with your friend group or the people that you spend the most time with, and that's not reflective of where you want to be, then like just consider, okay, maybe I need to start connecting with different people outside of my immediate friend group so that I can expand my horizons a bit. And so I think that was also an aspect. I was like, okay, I've been in New York for a certain amount of time. I'm very familiar. I'm very comfortable. So let me get out of my comfort zone and really, consider like, who do I need to be around? What are the things that I need to do to create the shift in my life and in my career that really excites me?
Yeah, it's a good point, because you can be excited by your own work as well. So sometimes it really is about putting yourself in a position where, I always say to actors, like, you should understand and know the business outside of just being a performer, because you can't complain about the roles you're auditioning for if you're not going to make it yourself. Make the roles for yourself what you want to be. If your aesthetic is Ed Hardy, or is it Ed Hardy? What am I saying? Well, I'm trying to think. I don't think that's right. I'm gonna have to cut that out. If you're okay, let's say your aesthetic is, I don't know, like horror films, or it's sci-fi, and you're not seeing yourself represented in that, make the film that you want to see, and then take the right steps to be able to get to where you want to be through that genre. You don't always have to just do the same stereotypical stuff which you see yourself in, or what you're auditioning for. And that's what it's about. So leveling up is about putting yourself in a position where you can take your career to the next level, but then also be active and be strategic about where you want to go. So that's really cool. So okay, so now you're out in LA, so enjoying the sun, I'm sure, opposites over here in the UK. So like
it is sunny and beautiful.
So besides all the stuff you've mentioned, what else have you got going on? Are you just like out there just enjoying yourself for now, or just like you've been straight to work?
It's been a mixture of things. I mean, I have a screenplay that I'm gonna be working on with someone out here. Then I have my own pilot that I've been developing, and then this play I've been writing. And then just recently I booked a voiceover gig, and I'm gonna be doing more auditions for things that are out here as an actor. And I am really kind of grinding, but also certainly on the beach and chilling, hanging out with friends, because I'm grateful that I have community out here and people that I know, and so yeah, so Delon is one of my best friends, and so we hang out, and he has a song with Daily Heaven that's out now, so you should check it out if you haven't listened to it. Um, and yeah, so it's a mixture of pleasure and work, but there's certainly work happening, and I'm grateful for the bookings that I have, the bookings that are to come, and the people that are reaching out to me to write and to work with them.
Okay, so what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is trying to make that move from, let's say, New York or UK or somewhere or another state in America? Like, what advice would you give them to come to LA? Because it's tough. Like, you know, you can go out to LA
Yeah.
and then find yourself coming back home because you've gone broke.
Yeah. I mean, I think the things that made me feel most uh capable were two things. I think the fact that I had already been somewhere and kind of learned the ropes a bit. So, you know, if having had lots of experience in New York, I was like, okay, I've been somewhere and I've mm, been able to survive for a decent amount of time. So I know it is possible. And then I will add to that that another part of me feeling comfortable was that like earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, I was in Mexico for about 3 weeks. And I was like, okay. I mean, you know, spending a longer time than a typical vacation amount of time somewhere, you really start to think about, okay, what is life like in a different place? And I think being able to see myself happy and comfortable and my being very free in Mexico reminded me that I don't have to be in the place that I consider home to be comfortable and or to grow. And so I think that reminder was really essential for me to feel confident enough to really start establishing myself in LA. But other advice I would say is make sure that you do have some sort of community in the place. And you know, that can be community that you initially met on social media and you feel good and comfortable about, and y'all can meet up in person. But I think that helps to know that there are, you know, 3 to 5 people at the very least who, and maybe it's for some people maybe one person is enough, but that you can really rely on when you're in a new place. I think that's really really helpful, because finding community and knowing that that there are people around you that you can laugh with, that you can cry with anywhere you go is really helpful to ensure that you feel like you can be your truest self. So yeah, that's something. And then I mean, with my podcast, with the 180, um, I hear lots of stories of people who were like, "I'm afraid to do this, but I took the leap anyway," you know? And I do think that's a part of it, is like you can't wait till everything feels perfect. You know, some people say, "Well, I just have to, you know, save this much money." And I think that's great. If you have a plan to save that much money, once you save that much money, go and do it. But if you don't have a plan and you're just like, I have to save this much money before I do it, then really you're just saying, I'm not going to do it, you know? So I think if you're expectations that everything is going to go as planned is stopping you, then you need to let go of that expectation and just, you know, trust that things will work out once you move. And that's part of faith, you know, is move and know that the net will be there, or know that you'll fly rather than the net. We don't need a net.
Exactly.
Know that you yeah, once you take that leap, you will fly. You might go downwards a little more than you feels comfortable, but you'll come back up and you'll fly.
That's good advice, and it's really good advice, and it's good to hear that, because that's something what I thought to myself. It's like, okay, if I want
Yeah.
to expand my career, I need to build a community abroad, and that's what I was planning to do. But pandemic stopped. But see, I'm still talking to you. See, we're still good.
Exactly, you're doing it.
Exactly. So
Totally.
when I come to LA, I'm trying to come in April for my birthday. I'll
Okay.
hit you up and we can catch up. You know, like that's
Yeah.
what it's about. Like, obviously,
Yes.
yeah, like building that community, because I have heard some stories of some like established British filmmakers going to LA and they came home because they didn't know anybody. They had to literally start from the bottom and work their way up. But it's like, who wants to go all the way to LA when you are already established somewhere else, and then having to start from the ground up? If you go with a plan and start building a community, and then that's what makes it easier to a certain degree. It's still a hustle and grind culture, but at least you can meet someone who knows someone who knows someone, you know. It's just easier like that, and you can build that community. So that's really good.
And I'll just add that I think, because I'm certainly still on this journey of figuring this out, but being able to like talk about yourself and your work in a way that is really assured of what you bring that's different, or what you bring. I don't want to say that's different. What you bring that is uniquely you, because, you know, everyone's different. But it's like, okay, what is your unique perspective, and why may that be exciting to an audience or to whoever you're pitching to? I think getting more and more clear for ourselves about what that thing is and how to describe it and share it with people is always helpful for, you know, breaking into a new environment. I was at a dinner a few nights ago where I only knew one other person. And I'm grateful that they this group of strangers that I didn't know, they played a game where they were like, let's go and guess, because I guess a lot of people didn't know each other, but let's guess people's occupations. And so they did that, and eventually once they got to me, they had all types of guesses. The one that I most admired was like, they thought I was in tech. I was like, okay, cool, I'll take that. But anyway, but then when I told them about what I did, I was just passionately describing, you know, why I love storytelling and what inspires me about storytelling and what my style of storytelling is. And I was like, and people were engaged, and I was like, okay, great. I just got some new fans, and like, that is a wonderful thing. And it can be moments like that. Like, I wasn't at a pitch meeting, but in that moment, I was like, okay, I do know how to describe what I do and keep people engaged. So like, let me remember that and try to ensure that I can I don't want to say recreate that feeling, but let me be assured and confident that I can do that when the stakes are higher. You know what I mean? When it isn't just a dinner and I'm just like, hey, yeah, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. But like, okay, I can also do that when it's this really important meeting. And so I think having the opportunities to put that into practice of like describing who you are, describing your art is really important.
I agree. But it's also, like you said, pushing you outside of your comfort zone. Like when I went to New York, I went by myself. I was like, okay, well, I'm not coming all the way here to come to this festival and just be in the corner and just like enjoying the event, you know, through like somebody else's perspective. No, I want to everybody and meet up with people and get to know people. And that's how I was able to create relationships and be able to hit you up in the DMs like, hey, I'd love to interview you, you know. So
no, and you were like you said, you were so open and happy to talk and celebratory of everybody, and really it seemed genuine. So I think that's also is like, and you mentioned you're like, I didn't want to be in the corner, right? So if you had that fear or if you were nervous, I couldn't tell. I just was like, hey, I like this guy. He's really cool and really nice. And
myself up. I was like, look, I'm not flying all the way here just to be in the corner. No. I need to like talk to people and make connections, and that's what it's about. So you kind of learn that confidence, and then at least you know that, like you said, like when you go into a pitch meeting, okay, I know I can have this confidence and people can see my passion and understand the story that I want to say or what I'm presenting anyway, then it does help you. But it's just about, like you said, preparation. So it's just about matching that energy with the energy you have when you're meeting people socially, and all in one. And that's how you kind of again build and get to where you want to be, hopefully. Because, you know, it's all about the market. You know, you could have a great idea and they can say to you, this is great, but not for right now. Or this is great, but we've got something similar like this. So can you
Right.
go back and change it a bit and then come back to us? So, it's just a long process. So you know how this industry is.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Well, this was good. Thanks again for joining me on this podcast. It's been good to catch up as well. And
Totally.
yeah, so where can everyone find your stuff, your work and your podcast and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I am on social media, specifically Instagram and Twitter at I don't use Twitter that much, but anyway, Instagram is I am Eric Lockley. So my name EricLockley. So at I am Eric Lockley on Instagram. And my website is also IamEricLockley.com. And then my podcast on Instagram, we're at the 180 pod. And on the website, you can also go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's available on wherever podcasts stream, but you can go to the website, the180pod.com, and all episodes are there. So we have, I think, 26 episodes, almost 26. Yeah, 26 episodes now. But it's awesome because it is both celebrities as well as local heroes and their authors and um, uh, I'm like authors and who
We
else?
had DeWanda Wise on there, who was on.
Yeah, DeWanda Wise. Yeah, She's Gotta Have It. We have artists visual artists. We have a lot of different people, and it's always inspiring to hear how they overcame adversity. And I personally will say I love the games we play because I make up the games, and some of them are so silly and very fun. In the upcoming one, I make up a musical with this Broadway actress, and we just on the spot do an impromptu musical. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. I need to check it out. It sounds like a fun, really good, fun podcast to listen to. So yeah, so I'll definitely check that out. So thanks again, Eric, for joining me on my podcast. As usual, guys, you can follow me all on my socials. There's a lot of them: the Kashif Boothe podcast, or Kashif Boothe Entertainment. Stay tuned for new episodes coming soon.